This is a speech, Parshat Bo, that the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave in 92? Shortly before he had a stroke, 2 months before he had a stroke. So here we have Parshat Bo. Parshat Bo, like we said before, is the third chapter in the book of Exodus, and it talks about the Jewish people making the last final preparations of going out of Egypt. There was the plague of darkness over there, and the plague of the firstborn. And before that, God told all the Jews to take the Pesach offering. But before that, it's called Bo. The word Bo means come. And God is telling Moses, come with me to Paro. Come with me to Paro. It says that Moses was afraid of Paro. Paro ruled over the whole world. Paro had tremendous spiritual powers to the degree that the first of the 10 commandments is, I am God that took you out of Egypt. It was such an amazing accomplishment to take the Jews out of Egypt. To take the Jews out of Egypt. God creates Egypt. God creates this. Okay. But God wants there to be Egypt. He wants there to be bad in the world. Paro has power from God to oppose Judaism, to oppose God. Paro is a... And so God said to Moses, come with me. I'll take you into Paro. Moses was afraid to go into Paro. Here we go. Ready? Tzivoy Hashem Moshe, this commandment of God to Moses. Get my pointer over here. The commandment of God to Moses, Boel Paro, come to Paro, who Hatchala, this is the beginning, Bishma, in the name of this Torah section that we're learning this week. And it's talking about the Geula, the redemption of the Jewish people actually from going out of Egypt. Okay, now this, of course, was a historical event. I don't think it's written in any history books, but it is a historical event. And not too many people deny that this happened, at least in the Western world, that it did happen, right? That God did take the Jews out of Egypt. I mean, religious people, in any case, took it out of Egypt. And those people who deny that it happened, it's, I mean, why deny that it happened? Because it doesn't make any sense. I mean, there's never been such a thing like that before. And what does it mean that God took the Jews out of Egypt? Well, that doesn't make any sense. But on the other hand, it's pretty hard to explain why the Jews insist on keeping the story going, right? For so many thousands of years, it's just a ridiculous story, and it didn't really do any good. Here you have all these other religions that have like billions of worshipers, and the Jews are based on this idea that was eyewitnessed. 3 million people eyewitnessed God taking them out of Egypt and giving them the Torah. And you have how many religious people are in Judaism, right? Not that, certainly not billions, you know. Luckily, I mean, maybe there's more than we think, but you know, how many Jews are there in general? How many Jews are there? There's about 20 million Jews in the world, something like that. How many are there? And let's say a quarter of them are religious, a fifth of them, a tenth of them, a 20th of them, right, are religious Jews. So, I mean, you think with such a story like this that it would work. It didn't work. Not only it didn't work even after it happened. 90 days after it happened, all the Jews worshiped the golden calf. So, okay, what is the whole point of this whole story? What's the point of the story of going out of Egypt? And it's the basis of Judaism that God took all of the people out. So first of all, it comes to tell us a little bit to explain how incomprehensible God is. Is that a word? Incomprehensible? How not understandable God is. He creates the world, but he chose the Jews and he did these big miracles and he took them out of Egypt. Personally, God did it. So God, at least if that's what we believe, that's our God. We believe that God personally, directly took the Jews out of Egypt, is involved in the world. He cares about the world. God personally, directly took the Jews out of Egypt, changed nature, and took the Jews out of Egypt. And that same God is the same God that's creating everybody now. And we're hoping he'll do miracles like that again, but not destroying Egypt or destroying this. It'll be that he'll change everything. Everyone will start to say, why? Like we say, it's why should I oppose God? Why I'm being created by God? Okay, so we believe it's going to happen again. That's going to be Moshiach is going to do more than Moses did. Moses took the Jews out of Egypt. Moshiach is going to take everybody out of Egypt. Like we said before, he's going to take the Egypt out of everybody also. Egypt means limitations. Okay, so here we go. The Jewish people going out of Egypt, it says, on this very day, Yatsuk Tzivot Hashem, the armies of God, the hosts of God, left Egypt. Hashem at Bnei Israel, God took the Jewish people out of Egypt, al Sivotam, on their hosts. On their hosts. In other words, there was 3 million Jews, some who left Egypt. There was just 600,000 males from the age of 20 and up. That's not all the children, all the McCabe, and since you call Parsha, since that the whole idea of going out of Egypt is called here, Bo El Paro. The whole name of the Torah portion is come with me to Paro. Yiddush Hashem Parsha, that the name of the, it's known that the name of the Torah portion, this indicates on the content of the Torah portion that we read, is moving, so it's understood. Bo El Paro, this whole idea of coming to Paro, Kashur must be attached, the Nogeh and relevant, the Tochen of Geulat Mitzrayim, the whole idea of going out of Egypt. Somehow or other, this is the title of going out of Egypt, come to Paro. All these things we talked about, the lessons that we talked about, that God exists and that God cares and that God is active in the world and God changes nature. God has a plan for the world and God is directly involved in this plan, actually in the physical world. He took the Jews out of Egypt. The whole title for this whole business is called Come to Paro. Kolomar, in other words, Nosef Lakach, in addition to this, Shekol Prati Shlichotav, that all of the details of the mission of Moses to Paro was a preparation for going out of Egypt. Nidvosef, there's also added in this Benogea Labo El Paro, to come to Paro, Biyoto Hatchala, this is the beginning and the name of the Torah portion. In addition to all the things that Moses said, that he take the Jews out of Egypt, they're going to receive the Torah, but somehow or other, this is the title, the whole title of the thing is Moses coming with God to Paro. God says to Moses, come with me to Paro. That's the whole title of the whole business. This is the thing you usually don't think about. I mean, going out of Egypt was a big enough miracle, and that was the whole theme. There's a whole holiday in Judaism, going out of Egypt. That's the main holiday of Judaism. Judah doesn't celebrate that holiday. It says in the time of the temple, you had to bring a Passover offering. It says the punishment was very severe. You had to bring up a korban. It's like saying you cut yourself off from Judaism. It's a very important thing, that God is active. God takes us out of Egypt. And that's the whole basis of the Jewish people. We're a people of miracles. Somehow or other, that's maybe overshadowed, or at least it's begun, that should not overshadow the idea that God told Moses, come with me to Paro. And that's the name of the whole entire topic of going out of Egypt. God saying to Moses, come with me to Paro. Notice of the Kach, in addition to in the beginning, it says, it said, not like just a preface, Ella b'toch tzivu, it's a commandment. God said to Moses a commandment, come with me to Paro. Vayomer Hashem Moshe bo Paro. That's the whole name of the portion. One sentence. God said to Moses, come with me to Paro. Shabo el Paro, this is a preface, preparation for the Geula Atzmi, for the redemption, for the Jewish people leaving Egypt at Chalat Apol. This is the beginning. The beginning of, this is a necessary step for going out of Egypt. God saying to you, let's go to Paro. What does it mean? Let's see. Even more. What does it mean? Even more appear you do like it's not serious, Mr. that they're going out of Egypt. This is the beginning and the opening of all of the redemptions of the Jewish people, right? The Jewish people, the first temple was destroyed. We went into exile in Babylon. in the middle of the second temple says that what was it? Alexander, whatever, conquered the whole world. We were in exile, another exile. There's different opinions how many exiles there were, but for sure the second temple was destroyed, and now we're also in exile. We're waiting for the Moshiach to take us out. So this going on that we read in the Torah that we left Egypt, this is the whole idea that the Jewish people being in exile and getting out of exile, this is part of the essence of what Judaism is. And we believe that it's going to happen again, that right now we're in an exile and we're going to go out of it. This is talking about what's Geula Atira, the future redemption. And it says in the prophet Micha, it says, just like the days of going out of Egypt, I will show you big miracles. Yesh Lomar, we can say that Bo Paro, this idea of coming, God saying to Moses, come with me to Paro, this is the beginning of the redemption from Egypt. Hu Akdama, this is the preface also to the future redemption as well. That's relevant to us because when is this future redemption going to happen? Right now. And if it happens right now, it's already like 2,000 years late. So it's supposed to happen any second. Whoop, suddenly, just like the Jews got out of Egypt, they never dreamed they would do it. Same thing is by us. All of a sudden, there's not going to be any more depression and aggression and frustrations and confusion in the world, etc. It's just going to go away. Right? It's going to go away. People will say, well, I'm being created by God. God loves me. I mean, there'll be much more than that, but that's the main thing. It's supposed to happen any second. But Tzurich Lav, we have to understand what is the connection of Baal Paro that God said to Moses, come with me to Paro. What's that got to do with the Geula, with the whole idea of the future redemption? It seems to be exactly the opposite. The future redemption is getting away from Paro. And going to Paro is going to Baal Paro. This shows that Paro, he is strong. And Moses has to go to Paro. And not only does he have to go to Paro, he is nizdakek alav, that he needs God to go with him. Acha Paro Marlo, the Paro says, Lech me, get out of here. Paro tells Moses, get out of my palace. Hishomer, you better watch out. Al tosef lirot panai. Don't let me see you again. Ki biyom panai tamut. If I see you again, Paro says to Moses, you better get out of here because if I see you again, you're dead. You're a dead man. This is that's the beginning of the redemption. The hepech, that's the opposite of the going out of Egypt. She'enyan levatel, to negate the power of Paro, ulenetzcho, and to defeat him. Al yedei by means of this, lishtachrer, to be free. Let's say to go out, lelechet, from Egypt, not to go into Paro. So how is going into Paro show that that's the beginning of the redemption? The beginning. They're two opposite things. Yuvan Zeh will understand it. And what does it tell us? What do we have to do? Yuvan Zeh, we can understand the behektem by preceding Shaila question, a general question with this idea of Baal Paro, come to Paro. Calling in the Torah, everything it says, everything it says in the Torah is eternal. So therefore, Horah, it is a teaching, nitzchus, an eternal teaching for all of the generations. When God speaking to Moses, he's speaking to us. God saying to go into Paro, he's talking to us. We also have to go into Paro. What does it mean? What does it mean? According to this, what could possibly be the eternal teaching that says God is saying to Moses, come with me at the Paro? After Shebitlo v'nitzcho at Paro, after we're out of Egypt. I mean, Paro was dead 3,000 years ago. We've already defeated Paro, the king of Egypt, the Geula Mitzrayim, when we left Egypt. Right? This is Alta Zachen. This is a story 3,300 years ago. We left Egypt. What do we keep mentioning it? Come to Paro, come to Paro. Let it go. He says, no, it's very important. Okay, so it's very important. What does it mean? What are we supposed to do? Right? Get an audience with Mubarak or something. Everybody has to go. There's no king in Egypt anymore. There's no more kings. What are we supposed to do? Says the Rebbe, Allah has come much more so after the Geula Mitit, after there's going to be the future redemption, like it says at Ruach HaTumah, it says like the spirit of impurity, it will get rid of the world. There won't be any hint even of Paro. Something like this, Besov's Managolas at the time of exile, although we've already finished, said the Rebbe says this many times, we've already finished refining Paro. Even now, said the Rebbe, this was 30 years ago, the Rebbe said, we're not endangered by Paro anymore. Yeshlom, we can say the explanation is this, according to what's said, Shekolin and Ba'olam, that everything in the world, even things that are the opposite of what's good and holy, Yeshlom, they have a source above in holiness. Well, this is the source in holiness. That's what's true. Ella but after it comes down into the world, after many concealments and etc., it comes that there is lamata davar havchi. In other words, Paro is an eternal good thing, but as it comes down into the world, it comes down to be bad. Kamokin is also the sin of Paro. Ita Bazor, it says in the Zohar, on the sentence V'hakol Nishma Beit Paro, it says that the voice was heard in the house of Paro with Yosef, when Yosef, excuse me, when Yosef met with his brothers. So Yosef was like he was the king of Egypt, the de facto king of Egypt. He said he met with his brothers. He was crying. It says the voice was sounded. It was heard in the house of Paro. Beit Paro dai simanech la'ela. This is hinted at something above. Beitva, the house, the itpario, that there is opened up, ve'itgalin, and revealed. Mine, from it, the word paro means also to open something up. There's mila and there's priya, right? And the prua, that means something that's opened up, no limits. This is talking about an upper level where there is revealed from it, kol nahorim, all the lights, kol butzinin, and all of the fire. Kol masha dahave satim, everything that was concealed, mitaman, from there, from this level of paro, in spiritual, is revealed. The Aramaic. Begin kach, and therefore, Kodesh Baruch Hu, God, afik kol nahorim, he brings out all the lights, v'kol bitzinim, and all of the flame, begin in order lidnara lahu kol, that he shines in that voice, right? We said the sound, the voice of Yosef and his brothers, it was heard in the house of Paro. It says when Yosef said his voice, they were crying. The Paro means all of these lights of godliness that came down. That's called kol below vav. This is at the beginning. It was called the voice, kol, the voice, but without the letter vav. Umiparo, therefore, from Paro, he made it from a kol without a vav into being with a vav. In other words, that it's drawn down. What's coming to say? That Yosef meeting together with his brothers is that was an occasion that God revealed from his essence, Paro, that all of the essential lights from above were revealed. That's what it says in the Zohar. Umiparo b'shorsho, the Kedusha is therefore from this level of Paro, which is the source of Paro is holiness, holy. That's revealing godliness. From that came tumbling down Paro in this world, but called Takfo Bila Umazah. Because God wants there to be a world where there's free choice. If it wasn't for this, God wouldn't have made the world at all. So therefore, everything that's good in the upper worlds is bad in the lower world. It's bad in the lower world. Like taking an atomic bomb, atomic power, and if you don't use it for good, if it's put in the hands of the wrong person, so it's terrible. But in the hands of the right person, it's wonderful. It's an amazing thing. Opening up atomic power, it's a good thing. This is a power which is concealed in nature, using nature, but if it tumbles down and you forget about what's good and harmony, it can be used for destructive purposes. The same thing with Paro. Paro is like atomic power. And its source, a wonderful thing. But here we're talking about spiritually. The word Paro means to open up all of the spiritual gates, Priya. But when it's not attached to its source, if it's in the wrong hands, then it comes tumbling down into the world and it becomes something evil. According to this, now we can understand why God had to say to Moses, come with me to Paro. The Shorsha, the Kedusha, namely, come with me to the source of Paro in holiness. In the Zohar, in our Torah portion, it explains that Bo and to Paro, that God saying, come to Paro, this is talking about coming to Paro, like Paro is in Paro below, Makati Bol Paro, and it also explains what it means. Here we had Yosef in the house of Paro that was revealed. That was a good thing. Yosef met with his brothers, and his voice was heard in Paro, in the house of Paro, means that godliness was revealed in the world. That was Yosef's thing, revealing godliness in the world. Yosef was the king of Egypt. He said he calmed down the decadence of Egypt and the licentiousness of Egypt. He calmed it all down. Yosef did. But it didn't last for long, right? It didn't last for long, which is not the case with Moses. When Moses went into Paro, so he went into a deeper level of evil. Evil. What is this talking about? Here, there's nothing good happening, right? There's nothing good happening. Paro is evil. He's in his total power. He's as sure as he was before the plague started. God tells Moses, go into Paro. What does it mean? Lech el Paro. What does it mean? Lech el Paro. Why? So the Zohar says, the Zohar asks in this week's Torah portion, God says to Moses, come with me to Paro. It's not talking about holy Paro like with Yosef. Here he's talking about come with me to Paro. Says the Zohar, Lech el Paro. God, it should say that God told Moses to go into Paro, not come to Paro. My boy, what does it mean, come with me to Paro? That God took Moses, Idrin Batar Idrin, into chambers after chambers. This is Aramaic. Zohar, huh? We're learning a little Zohar over here. God took Moses into chambers after chambers, Lagabi Tanina Chada, into one big serpent. Ila'ah, the upper serpent, Tekifa, that's powerful, the Kama Dargin of many levels, and many levels of evil come out from it. Uman, what is this? Raza the Tanina Gadol. This is the big serpent. We talked about last week in the Haftorah. Moshe and Moses, Dachil Mine, he was afraid of it. Below Kariv, and he didn't come close, Elalagabe Inon Orion, only to certain aspects of this evil. The Inon Dargin, of the levels of Lagabe, regard it to come to the source of evil. Dachil, he was afraid. The low Karav, and he didn't want to come close, begin because the Chamale, he saw Mishorsha, its source. Bishorshin Yiloyin, its upper source. What are we saying here? Listen. Paro in his source is really good. But when Paro is found in this world and he's separate, so he's bad. Who made this thing up that there's evil in the world? Why is it that Paro, if he comes down in its level, is evil? Why shouldn't it be evil? Just a little bit less good, right? Like a person, instead of being a multi-billionaire, so instead of that, he only has a multi-millionaire, and that falls down lower. He only has a couple thousand, and he has he has $1 in the bank. Why is it that it has to be that a person's a multi-billionaire, but if he falls down, he becomes a robber and a murderer? And why become? Who says he has to become evil? God made it that way. God made it that way. So if so, the source of the ability for good to become evil, this is also from God. And there was God somehow or other wants there to be evil in the world. That's what Moses was afraid of. Even since the Chama Kodesh Baruch Hu, since the God saw the Dachal Moshe, that Moses was afraid. The Shalichan Mimen, the Shalichan, the Dachal Moshe, the Shalichan, Mimanan, Acharin, Le'ela, since that we saw that Moses was afraid to go and to go up to these high levels, Le'ela is lo yachol l'karava. He couldn't come close to this level of the source, the true source of evil. How good can transform to evil? God saw that Moses was afraid. Omar Kodesh Baruch Hu, God said, Hineni alech Paro, behold, alecha, here is Paro, Melech Mitzrayim, Atanina Gadol, here is the big serpent, Arubetz Tachat Yoro, Kodesh Baruch Hu, Etztarich le'agcha be karava. God had to make a war with Paro, and no one else. Like it says, Ani Hashem, I am God. In other words, God said to Moses, okay, I understand you can't go alone. So then Kalomer, in other words, token, because of the power of the essence of the evil of Paro, the Tanina Gadol, this is the big serpent, the Beto, when he was in his palace, in the palace of the king, that's his source, upper source, as Pachad Moshe, Moses was afraid to go there. Look, and therefore, therefore, God did not say go to Paro, that you should go alone. Elabon Paro, come with me. Sheyavo Yachad, he'll come together with God. V'yakanis the Paro, we'll go in together to Paro. Kodesh Baruch Hu, and God machnis oto, and God brought him together with him to the penimius ve'etzem, to the essence of this power of evil of Paro. Idrin bater Idrin says chambers after chambers, rooms after rooms, in order to conquer him totally, to make a war. And now you can ask a question, why didn't God do it on his own? Because that's the way God wants the world to be. He wants us to do it. He wants us to do things. God put us in the world that we should do the work. True, God did take us out of Egypt alone. Yes, God does miracles on his own, yes. But that was only to prepare the Jews, to free them to do service in order to serve God, to change the world on their own. Some things God does on his own, but we see that when God does do things on his own, it doesn't come out so good, right? God took the Jews out of Egypt on his own. They could have never gotten out on their own. He did miracles, split the sea, they went out. God gave them the Torah on his own. They could have never done it on their own. What happened after 40 days after they received the Torah? They thought Moses wasn't going to come back. What did they say? Let's worship the golden calf, right? Everybody said, oh, no, there is an idea. There is an idea. Why? Well, we didn't think of that. He says, what do you mean we think of it? Everybody thought about it. Everyone said, this is a good idea. Let's worship the golden calf. They heard God say, don't worship golden calves. Don't worship anything except for me that took you out of Egypt. And they said, okay, God said his thing, and then we've got our thing. So we see that when God does the whole thing on his own, it doesn't work so well. So God is telling Moses, you have to begin the work of the Jewish people. Go to Paro. Moses said, Paro is the source of evil. I can't go with him. He says, don't worry. He says, God, I'll go with you. According to this, we have to understand, what does it mean, come to Paro, of holiness? One second, we just gave two different definitions of Paro. Paro is the source of evil, and that's what it says in one place where they're talking about Yosef, and now we're saying, Paro is the source of evil. That's what we're talking about here, Moses. And Paro is the source of holiness. That's what we talked about when we talked about Yosef. That Paro, all the upper lights are revealed. What is Paro? He says it's both. Let's talk about, first of all, what we're talking about here. God is commanding us to go higher and higher into holiness. That there's revealed all lights. We're getting into Paro of Kedusha. If it's talking about the first explanation that Paro means holy, so why would Moses be afraid? Moses should be afraid to go to the holy level of Paro where all the lights are revealed, the true source of Paro. And that where the God commanded, it said, you're afraid to go, Moses, I'll go with you. And why should Moses be afraid to go into a holy level of Paro? Why? Why should he? Says the reason for this, Yeshlom, we can say, Paro of holiness is such a big revelation of godliness. Whether the revelation of godliness is revealed all of the lights of God, the essence of God, including all these lights of God, the levels, the highest possible levels of God, all the lights and all the fire that comes from God, that everything which is concealed becomes revealed. That's number one. And number two, ba'ofen the espriu malashon perua. Namely, the word peria means to be revealed, but also the word perua means without any limitations whatsoever. L'mayla miseder medirav agbala, Allah above any sort of measure or level. It's a level of godliness which is revealed without any, without any limit whatsoever. A flood of godliness. So Moses said, well, the lights are too high. And not only is it too high, it's not limited. I can't deal with it. So that's why Moses was afraid. Yeterem Mizu, even more. It Puriu, there is revealed all of the lights. This is from God's essence. The Lashon of the Zohar, Beit Paro, this is called Chuli, Beta de Pariu Vit Galin. Like the Zohar said, well, when we're talking about God, Paro, when we were talking about Yosef, that this is holy. This is the aspect of God that's revealed all of the lights, God, all of the lights of godliness, all the levels of God, all the names of God. This revealed, it was too high. Moses couldn't take it. In God's essence. Or because light on itself, light itself, that's the lights of God. All these different levels and blessings of God, they come down in sort of an order, like we just finished learning in Torah, all the different names of God and the aspects of God. There's lights, there's vessels. The revelation of light itself, in a way of revelation, it has to be in an orderly fashion. So it's understood from this that in order that there should be a revealing of all of the lights of God, and that's this level of paro, of holiness, that everything which was concealed is all revealed, and it's revealed in a way of esprio, in a big flood at one time, above any order. This is tzorich lavomi. That's what this has to come from God's essence. That God's essence, this is the source, so to speak, of all these lights. Like it says in the Zohar, our Parsha, the Etzem Priya, Kama Dargan, all these different levels, and the highest levels come from it. And together with this source, Shalomaila, which is totally above any sort of a source or even how do you say, an origin. In other words, the essence of God being revealed all these lights. So therefore, it was too much for Moshe, too much for Moses. According to this, now we can understand why Moses was afraid. He didn't come. God, Moses saw the Paro, the revelation of Paro, of holiness, is rooted in its upper source. Therefore, he was afraid to go into it, to base Paro. He was afraid. It's so much of a powerful revelation of godliness. Shekain Nivra Mugbal, it's limited. Nishma Neshama Bagu, because Moses was limited. He was a person, a human being. Lo Yochol is not able to receive such big revelations from God. As Pariu Vizgalim Minei, there's revelation revealed from it all. How can a creation, a limited creation, go into this such a high level? Now, it's true, after God gave the Torah, when God gave the Torah, Moses went into this level, the same level here. He went there 40 days, right? It was with God 40 days, and he did it 3 times. And the high priest in the Holy Temple, he would go in once a year to this high level of godliness. But this was the first time, and it never happened before. This is a revelation which is above any sort of level that comes from God's essence. So therefore Moses, it says, was afraid. It was too much. Hagiluyim the Seder Ishtauslos. Otam there, Yochel Nivra Lakabel. A creation can receive Loch, and therefore Lo Pachan Moshe. All the other levels of godliness, Moses was not afraid to go into Paro, as Paro was in the lower levels of God, when he was in his house or outside of his house. It says that Paro when he was in the river. But according to how Paro is, like we see in holiness, the source, that all lights, all godliness, all blessings, the source of all that, this comes in all of the power, the essence of God. This, Moses was afraid, because Moses was a person. If he would go in, he would lose his identity, he would lose who he was. He would tantamount, that's called dying. Normal people don't want to die. Kineshama Baguf on its own, lo yachol lekabel, it was not able to receive it. So Moses was saying to God, listen, God, you want me to be the leader of the Jewish people. You want me to take the Jewish people out. You want me to do all these things with the Jews. If I go too close to holiness, I'm going to evaporate. I won't be anything, right? And not only that, I don't want to go into such a high level. Give me little by little. God said, okay, don't worry about it. I'll go with you. Okay, what does this teach us? This is what we're going to learn, God willing, tomorrow. Now let's, was it tomorrow? Okay. Okay, here we go. Stop recording.